Bum 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 bum. Oh, now I can fix my camera. It died. Why? Why? All right. Come on, camera. You can do it. You can do it. Yes. Yes. Hello. Hi, all. All right, we are back. Oh, no. When did I die? Some Malik. All right. How long did you keep reading? I kept. When did I die? I read until here. Does anyone remember when the stream went down? So we're at. I don't even know. I guess I can look back at the stream. Can I do that? Sometime after the horn? After the horn, okay. After the horn? Jesus Christ. What? They just lit the goat legs on fire? You're kidding me. You're killing me. I read for so long. Okay. I was just reading to nobody. Reading to myself. Okay. It wasn't that long. Alright, let's set the ropes on fire, okay? Alright. Oh. Well, it's gonna be good. Speed read. Alright. Alright, we're back. Well, at least I got the camera fixed. The flame raced upward, and the heat melted the blood ice binding the sheep legs to the cliff face. Each step of the ladder detached one by one, starting from the bottom and falling away. The fire serpent slithered up the peak, lighting the snowy night, an eerie and beautiful sight. Huang Rong clapped with delight. That rhymes. Jingge, tell me, are we still going to spare him this time? Guo Jing said. This is the third time. We can't break our word. Huang Rong laughed. I've got an idea. We can keep our promise and avenge your master. Guo Jing was thrilled. Rong you really are full of clever ideas. What kind of plan is this? Huang Rong grinned. It's not hard at all. Let that old poison freeze on top of the peak, drinking northwest wind for 10 days and nights. By the time he's frozen and starving and completely worn out, we build the sheep ladder again and rescue him. That counts as our third time sparing his life, doesn't it? Yes, it does, Huang Rong continued. So once you've fulfilled your promise to spare him 3 times, you don't need to be polite anymore. The moment he sets foot back on level ground, we strike together. And in the 3 elders, 5 of us against one half-dead sick man, don't you think we can kill him? Guojing said, Of course we can, but it seems a bit dishonorable to kill him that way. Huang Rong scoffed. What honor is there in dealing with a venomous, vicious man like him? When he killed our 5 masters, did he show any mercy? When he murdered 4th master, was that a fair and open fight? Remembering the deep, bloody grudge for his masters, Guojing's eyes burned with fury. Then he thought of Ouyang Feng's extraordinary skill. If they let him go again, there might not be another chance for revenge. He gritted his teeth. Fine, we'll do it your way. The two returned to the command tent and began earnestly studying the martial techniques in the 9-yin manual. As they discussed and exchanged insights, they realized both had made great progress in the past year. Both were filled with joy at each other's growth. Huang Rong hadn't memorized the Sanskrit version and didn't have access to the Chinese translation, which was with Guojing, so her understanding of the manual's deeper meanings had been incomplete. Now that she could finally see the full picture, she was overjoyed and even more energized. As their conversation went on, Guojing said, That scoundrel Wen Yan Honglie is right here in the city. We can see him with our own eyes, yet we can't do a thing. Can you think of some clever plan to breach the city? Huang Rong said thoughtfully, I've been mulling this over for days and have come up with a dozen or so ideas, but not one of them actually works. Guojing said, Among the Beggar Clan brothers, at least a dozen have excellent likeness skills. If we add you and me, maybe we can try scaling the city walls? Huang Rong shook her head. Every single jung of that wall is guarded by more than a dozen strong archers. Climbing won't be easy, and even if we manage to get a dozen people inside, with over 100,000 defenders fighting to the death, there's no way to open the gates from within. The two of them talked late into the night and didn't sleep at all. The next morning, Genghis Khan once again ordered an assault on the city. Over 10,000 Mongol soldiers manned catapults, and boulders rained into the city like a storm. There were also a few cannons seized from Jin and Song armies that fired upon the walls. But the defenders had taken shelter in towers and bunkers. Though many homes were destroyed, casualties among the defending troops were light. For 3 straight days, the Mongols launched attack after attack, but all efforts failed. On the 4th day, the sky filled with large, fluttering snowflakes once more. Guojing looked toward the peak and said, Looks like Ouyang Feng won't last 10 days. He's probably half frozen by now. Huang Rong said, His internal energy is deep. He can hold out 10 days. She had barely finished the sentence when both of them cried out in shock. From the top of the peak, a figure was falling. It was Ouyang Feng. Huang Rong clapped and cried joyfully, That old poison couldn't take it, and jumped to his death. Then she blinked in confusion. Wait, that's strange. Why is it like that? They saw that he wasn't dropping straight down. His body drifted and floated like a kite. The two stared in disbelief. Falling from a 1,000-foot peak should have smashed him to bits, but how was he descending so slowly? Could he really be using some kind of sorcery? Within moments, Ouyang Feng descended a bit more, and they could finally see clearly. He was completely naked, with 2 large round objects tied to his head. Huang Rong suddenly understood and cried, What a pity! Ouyang Feng had been trapped on the summit of Bald Tree Peak. Though he was a martial arts master, there was no way down from that sheer cliff. After days of freezing and starving, Desperation sparked inspiration. He removed his pants, tied off both legs tightly, and fearing that they wouldn't hold, he stripped off the rest of his clothes and tied them around the pants. Then, gripping the waistband and letting the wind fill the pants like a parachute, he clenched his teeth and leapt from the peak. Mary Poppin? Yeah. Yeah, there's a moment where I'm like, does that really work? Are his pants that good? It was a reckless gamble, a desperate leap from death, but it worked. The inflated pants caught the wind and slowed his descent. Though stripped naked and his hands nearly frozen, he relied on his exceptional internal strength to circulate qi through his body and resist the chill. He's showing his other serpent? Nah. Hongrong was both amused and exasperated, and for a moment she had no idea what to do with him. It was kind of cold, so maybe it's like a water snake. By now, both the defenders and attackers of the city had seen what was happening. Tens of thousands of people lifted their heads to watch the man drifting down from the sky. Many of the lower-ranking soldiers, thinking they were witnessing a god descending to earth, dropped to their knees and kowtowed in worship. What is going on? Guo Jing watched the direction in which Gu Yongfeng was falling. He was sure to land inside the city. As Ouyangfeng was still dozens of zhang above the ground, Guo Jing grabbed an iron-banded bow and fired a series of arrows at him, thinking that since the man was suspended in midair, he would have no way to dodge. But remembering their agreement to spare him 3 times, he aimed only at Ouyangfeng's thigh to avoid fatal injury. But Ouyangfeng, even in midair, scanned his surroundings carefully. Seeing that the arrows were all aimed at his lower half, he suddenly arched his back and bent forward, swinging both legs repeatedly and kicking away every arrow Guo Jing had fired. As the roar of the 3 armies rose, Genghis Khan received Guo Jing's brief report and immediately gave the order. Loose arrows! In an instant, 10,000 bows were drawn. Arrows flew like a meteor shower, streaking toward Ouyangfeng. Even if he had 1,000 hands and 10,000 legs, he wouldn't be able to block them all. He was completely naked, with no way to dodge in midair. There was no doubt he would be pierced into a human pincushion. If only. Sensing the peril, Ouyangfeng suddenly let go of the inflated pants, flipping upside down as he plunged head first. Tens of thousands of soldiers from both sides shouted in unison. The sound shook the heavens. Then, in midair, Ouyangfeng twisted his waist and dove toward a large flag flying over the city wall. The northwest wind was strong, holding the banner stretched taut from west to east. Ouyangfeng reached out with his left hand and grabbed the corner of the flag. With a slight pull, the flag ripped in half. He flipped, hooked his legs around the flagpole, and slid straight down behind the city wall, vanishing from sight. He's too good. Both armies were stunned by this incredible feat. For a moment, they were so awestruck, they forgot to keep fighting. Guo Jing thought, this doesn't count as the 3rd mercy. Does that mean we still owe him 1 more? Rong'er will definitely be upset. But when he turned to look at her, he saw Hongrong smiling. He quickly asked, Rong'er, what's making you so happy? Hongrong clapped her hands and laughed. I'm giving you a great big gift. Are you happy? Or what gift? Hongrong replied, the city of Samarkand. Guo Jing stared, not understanding. Hongrong said, that old poison just taught me a brilliant way to take the city. Go rally the troops. We'll seize victory tonight. You gonna parachute down? She leaned in and whispered a few words in his ear. Guo Jing was so delighted he clapped over and over. By noon that day, Guojing issued secret orders. His men were to cut open their tents and turn the canvas into round canopies, each tied underneath with strong leather cords. Within 1.5 hours, they were to complete 10,000 of these. The soldiers were puzzled. Cutting up tents in this freezing weather? A single night exposed to the elements could be fatal. But since the commander had spoken, they had no choice but to obey. Is this historically accurate? Did the Mongol army actually parachute in? Guojing also ordered all the cattle and sheep used for food to be gathered beneath the snowy peak standing by. He directed one division of 10,000 to form 4 tactical formations: heaven covering, earth carrying, wind raising, and cloud lowering, just outside the north gate, designed to capture fleeing generals and commanders. A second division formed dragon soaring, tiger wing, bird gliding, and serpent coiling formations on either side of the gate, intended to drive the enemy into the first group's formations. A third division of 10,000 was to be lightly equipped and kept mobile, ready for deployment. They did not parachute into Samarkand? Yeah, I didn't think so. They did destroy the city? Yeah, they destroyed the entire city. This is conflating the invasion of Samarkand and the invasion of Normandy, which is a common historical mistake. That night, after a hearty meal, the two 10,000-man teams set out, as instructed, toward the north. At the end of the Shu hour, just as the high hour was beginning. Okay, well. Guojing sent a personal guard to report to the Khan. The enemy city was ready to fall, and he requested reinforcements to storm it. Alright. Good time for a break. I'll be right back. Hopefully, the stream doesn't die again. Alright. BRB. Alright, we're back. When Genghis Khan heard the report, he was unsure whether to believe it. He quickly summoned Guojing for a personal briefing, but the guard replied, "The Golden Blade Prince Consort has already led his troops into battle. He only waits for the Great Khan to send support." Guojing sounded the horn in his formation. Over 1,000 soldiers slaughtered cattle and sheep, freezing chunks of meat to the peak of the mountain. Among the beggar sect were many experts in leaping and climbing. How many cattle and sheep? They all died. It's a genocide. They worked together, passing materials and assisting one another to construct dozens of sheep ladders. At Guojing's command, he led the charge upward. 10,000 soldiers, leather canopies tied to their waists with long cords, began climbing slowly to the summit. Strict orders had been issued. No one was to make a sound. In the darkness, dozens of snaking lines twisted upward toward the peak, like giant dragons scaling the sky. The summit of the mountain was not wide. 10,000 men packed together, shoulder to shoulder, leaving little room for those who came last. Guojing ordered the soldiers to fasten the leather canopies around their waists, draw their weapons, and leap into the city together to strike the southern gate. With a slap of his palm, he leapt first. Several hundred beggar sect members followed close behind. Leaping from such a height was naturally perilous, but the Mongol soldiers were known for their bravery and ferocity, and after witnessing Ouyangfeng descend the mountain by air during the day, they had confidence. The leather canopies were far more stable than his inflated trousers. Now, seeing their commander take the lead, Each man followed courageously. In that instant, the sky bloomed like 1,000 flowers. Leather canopies opened in succession, guiding the soldiers safely down into the city. Huang Rong sat atop an icy boulder on the peak, beaming with joy as she watched the plan succeed. She thought, whether Genghis Khan takes the city or not doesn't concern me. But if Brother Jing listens to my strategy, he can take this opportunity to finish an important task. As soon as Guo Jing touched ground, he tore off the leather canopy from his back and swept his broadsword at the enemy. At that moment, some of the city's guards had already begun to notice the intrusion, but upon suddenly seeing thousands of enemy soldiers descending from the sky, they were so shocked and terrified that they lost all will to fight. The first to land were members of the beggar sect, all highly skilled martial artists. Within moments, they had pushed toward the city gate. Next came the waves of Mongol soldiers. Though several hundred perished from broken canopies or were shot by enemy arrows mid-air, more than 80% landed safely. Many were carried by the wind to other parts of the city and were surrounded or slain by the Khwarezm defenders. Still, 1,000 to 2,000 landed near the gate. Gorjing ordered half of them to fend off the enemy, while the other half broke down the gate. Yeah, they're pretty good. The first time parachuting, they landed pretty close to the gate. When Genghis Khan saw Guo Jing's men gliding into the city, he was thrilled and astonished. He immediately mobilized all three armies to storm the city walls. At that moment, the southern gate opened, and hundreds of Mongol soldiers stood guard with spears. Several Mongol battalions surged inside. The enemy was now being attacked from both within and without, and the troops fought with unmatched ferocity. Over 100,000 Khwarezm defenders were thrown into panic, unable to tell where the enemy had come from. As the Mongol forces battled, they also began pouring fire oil and setting blazes throughout the city. Flames roared skyward, and the Khwarezm soldiers descended further into chaos. Before daybreak, the defending army collapsed. The king of Khwarezm, Mohammed, upon hearing that the north gate had not yet been attacked, immediately opened it and fled north. But little did he know that one of Guo Jing's 10,000-man units had been lying in ambush on both sides. Arrows and spears rained down, resulting in a bloody slaughter. Mohammed, unwilling to fight further, ordered Wen Yanhonglia to lead troops to cover the rear, while he himself fled first under the protection of his personal guard. Guo Jing was determined to capture Wen Yanhonglia. Amidst the chaos of retreating soldiers, he spotted a flash of golden helmet and led his troops in hot pursuit. Though the Khwarezm forces had been defeated, their numbers were still vast. Now, like the trapped beasts, they fought back desperately, each man struggling for his life. Guo Jing's forces were too few to block them effectively, and swift scouts on horseback soon reported that the enemy was about to break through. Guo Jing recalled the military adage, "Do not take the baited enemy. Do not obstruct a returning force. When besieging, leave an opening. Do not pursue a desperate foe." He immediately ordered a change in formation. At the command of raised flags, the heaven, earth, wind, and cloud formations parted, opening a path. Tens of thousands of Khwarezm troops surged forward. Then, at the next signal and the sound of the war drums, the four formations swiftly closed again. Only the rear guard of 10,000 remained, all elite troops, but having suffered defeat, they had lost their will to fight. Outnumbered, they were all captured by Guo Jing's forces. Guo Jing went among the prisoners, but Wen Yanhonglia was nowhere to be found. Though the battle was a complete victory, the fact that both of his mortal enemies had escaped left a trace of regret. Of course they escaped. By dawn, the remaining enemy forces in the city had been wiped out. Genghis Khan gathered his generals in the Khwarezm king's palace. Guo Jing, who had been reorganizing his troops and attending to the wounded, heard the sound of the Khan's golden horn and quickly rushed over. In front of the palace square, he saw a small unit of soldiers standing by the gates. Among them were Huangrong, elder Lu Youjiao, and the other two elders of the beggar sect. Huangrong clapped her hands, and two soldiers carried forward a large burlap sack. She grinned and said, "Hey, guess what's inside?" Guo Jing laughed. "With all the strange and curious things in this city, how could I possibly guess?" Huangrong said, "This is a present from me to you, one that's sure to make you happy." A sudden thought struck Guo Jing. Could she have found some beautiful girl in the city and is teasing me again? He quickly shook his head and said, "I don't want it." Huangrong laughed. "You really don't want it? Don't change your mind once you see it." She gave the sack a shake, and a person tumbled out. His hair was a mess, his face was smeared with blood and dirt, and he wore the sheepskin coat of a Khwarezm soldier. When Guo Jing saw his face, there was no mistaking it. It was none other than the Prince Zhao of the Jin Empire, Wenyan Honglie. All right. Guo Jing was overjoyed. "Excellent! Where did you catch him?" Huangrong replied, "I saw a group of defeated troops leaving through that north gate. One of them was carrying the Prince Zhao banner, and a general in golden helmet and brocade robe was leading them east. I figured that Wenyan Honglie is far too cunning to openly fly his own banner after a defeat, clearly a trick to cover his real escape. Since the banner went east, he must be fleeing west. So Elder Lu and I set up an ambush to the west, and sure enough, we caught him." She's too good. She took the short sword that had once belonged to Guo Jing and handed it back to him. "Congratulations! Today you can finally avenge your father. When you use this sword to kill that traitorous scum, your father's spirit in heaven will surely rejoice." Guo Jing accepted the short sword and bowed deeply to her. "Rong you've helped me avenge my father. I truly don't know how to thank you." Huangrong pursed her lips in a smile. "That was just luck. You've achieved a great merit today. Surely the Khan will reward you handsomely. Now that's something to be happy about." Guo Jing said, "There's nothing I really want." Huangrong walked a few steps aside and whispered, "Come here." Guo Jing followed. She asked, "Is there truly nothing in this world you want?" Guo Jing was taken aback. "There's only one thing I want, to never be parted from you." Huangrong smiled faintly. "Today you've rendered such a great service. Even if you were to offend the Khan, I doubt he'd get angry." Guo Jing replied with an still not fully understanding. Huangrong continued, "Right now, if you asked him to grant you some title or rank, he'd surely agree. But if you asked him not to give you any title, he'd have a hard time refusing too. The key is to get him to promise first that no matter what you ask, he'll agree." Guo Jing said, "You're right." Hearing this agreement, Huangrong said nothing more. She scratched her head and grumbled, "So, enjoying your title as the Golden Blade Consort Prince, are you?" Guo Jing suddenly came to a realization and exclaimed, "Ah, I see now. You want me to ask the Khan to call off the marriage, and if he agrees beforehand to grant whatever I ask, he won't be able to refuse once I bring it up." Huangrong said with some irritation, "No, that's entirely up to you. Maybe you do want to be a royal son-in-law." Guo Jing replied, "Rong Princess Huazheng has always treated me with sincere affection, but my feelings for her have always been like those of an older brother. At first, I couldn't go back on the engagement because I was bound by honor, but if the Khan is willing to withdraw the order, then it's a perfect solution for everyone." Huangrong was secretly delighted and gave him a playful sideways glance. Guo Jing was about to say more when suddenly the golden horn sounded again from the palace. He took Huangrong's hand and said, Runger, wait for my good news. Yeah, is it gonna be good news? Is he gonna promise to marry Hua Zheng again? Knowing him. Then he escorted Wen Yan Honglia to the palace to meet with the great Khan. Genghis Khan was overjoyed to see Guo Jing and personally stepped down from the throne to greet him, taking his hand and leading him up the dais. He ordered a brocade stool to be brought and had Guo Jing sit beside him. Then he heard that Wen Yan Honglia had been captured. When he heard that Wen Yan Honglia had been captured, he was even more pleased. Seeing Wen Yan Honglia prostrated before him, the Khan raised his right foot and stepped on his head with a laugh. Ha 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 ha! You came to Mongolia back then, flaunting your might. Did you ever imagine such a day would come? Wen Yan Honglia, knowing death was inevitable, raised his head and said, At that time, our Jin Empire's military was strong. It's a pity we didn't eliminate your tiny Mongol tribe first, or we wouldn't be in this mess today. Genghis Khan roared with laughter and ordered the guards to take him outside and execute him on the spot in front of the hall. Guo Jing, recalling his father's long-held grudge finally avenged, felt a mix of joy and sorrow. He had intended to use the short sword gifted by Qiu Chuqi to personally kill Wen Yan Honglia, but when he saw the man's bloodied and despairing face, his hatred dissipated, and he no longer felt the need to do it himself. No, why? Do it yourself. I want to see it. Genghis Khan said, I once promised that whoever broke this city and captured Wen Yan Honglia would be granted all its women, wealth, and treasures. Go and take stock. It's all yours. Guo Jing shook his head. My mother and I have been under the great Khan's protection, and we've had enough to eat and wear. I have no use for servants or riches. The Khan laughed. Ha 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 ha. Well said. That is the mark of a true hero. Then what do you want? Whatever it is, I will grant it. No, what's going to happen? Guo Jing rose and bowed deeply. There is one thing I would ask of the great Khan. Please don't be angry. Genghis Khan laughed. Ha 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 ha. Speak freely. Just as Guo Jing was about to speak about withdrawing from the marriage, a thunderous clamor of crying and shouting suddenly erupted from the distance. The voices of tens of thousands shook the earth and pierced the heavens, shocking everyone present. All the generals in the hall leapt to their feet and drew their sabers, thinking that the surrendered citizens and soldiers of Samarkand had suddenly launched the revolt. They rushed out to suppress the uprising. But Genghis Khan laughed and said, Ha 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 ha! No need, no need. This cursed city defied the might of heaven, costing me many brave soldiers, and even took the life of my beloved grandson. It must be thoroughly purged in blood. Let's all go take a look. He kills everyone. He rose from his seat and strode out of the palace, the generals following behind. The group mounted their horses outside the palace and rode swiftly toward the western gate. The screams grew more and more harrowing with each passing moment. Once they passed through the city gate, they saw countless civilians fleeing in terror, their cries echoing in waves. People tripped and stumbled over each other, while Mongol cavalry galloped back and forth, sabers flashing as they cut down everyone in their path. It turned out the Mongols had ordered all the residents to leave the city, not allowing a single soul to remain. At first, the locals believed it was merely a census to root out hidden enemies, but once the Mongols had confiscated all their weapons, they began pulling skilled artisans from from the crowds, followed by beautiful young women and housewives tying them up with ropes. Only then did the people of Samarkand realize the disaster that had befallen them. Some tried to resist and were immediately cut down by swords and spears. Several regiments of Mongol troops let out a unified war cry and charged into the crowds, swinging their sabers wildly. Men, women, children, and the elderly, none were spared. The massacre that followed was truly hellish. From silver-haired elders to infants still cradled in their mother's arms, no one escaped. By the time Genghis Khan and his generals arrived to inspect the carnage, over 100,000 people had already perished. Blood and gore covered the streets. Mongol war horses trampled over corpses as they continued their butchery. Genghis Khan laughed heartily and shouted, "Ha ha ha ha! Good! Kill them all! Let them see the might of Genghis Khan!" Gorjing watched for a while, but could no longer bear it. He spurred his horse forward and called out to the Khan, "Great Khan, please spare them!" Genghis Khan waved him off and barked, "Slaughter every last one! Leave none alive!" Guojing dared not press further, but just then he saw a boy of 7 or 8 scramble out from the crowd and throw himself onto the body of a woman who had been trampled by a horse. He cried out, "Mama!" A Mongol soldier galloped by, swung his saber, and in one slash cut both mother and child into 4 pieces. The boy's tiny hands still clutched his mother tightly. Guojing's blood boiled. He cried out, "Great Khan! You said that the women, children, and treasures of this city were mine. Why have you now ordered a massacre?" Oh no, he's going to save them. He's not going to ask to call off the wedding. Genghis Khan was startled, then chuckled. "You said you didn't want them." Guojing said, "You also promised that no matter what I asked of you, you would grant it. Isn't that true?" The Khan nodded with a smile. Guojing shouted, "Then I ask you, spare the lives of the remaining tens of thousands of people." This is your favorite damn it Guojing moment? The bastard. Genghis Khan was utterly shocked. He never imagined Guojing would make such a request. But, having already given his word, how could he go back on it? Still, his heart burned with anger. His eyes seemed to shoot flames as he glared at Guojing, hand on his saber hilt, and barked, "Boy! Are you truly asking this of me?" If he's this mad at this, how mad is he going to be when Guojing asked to not marry his daughter? Now that's a more realistic Genghis Khan? Yeah, that's the great Khan I know. All the princes and generals saw the great Khan's fury and were terrified. The guards flanking him were all battle-hardened warriors, fierce and fearless, unafraid of death. But at that moment, under his rage, not one didn't shudder inwardly. Guojing had never seen Genghis Khan so fierce before, and fear gripped him. His body trembled slightly, but he still said, "I only ask that your majesty spare the lives of these common folk." Genghis Khan said in a low growl, "You do not regret this?" Guojing thought of Hongrong's plan for him to withdraw from the marriage. If he passed up this perfect chance, he might forever lose the Khan's favor. That alone would be fine, but it might also mean losing his future with Hongrong. Still, faced with the sight of tens of thousands of civilians screaming and wailing in terror, how could he stand by and do nothing? He lifted his head and said firmly, "I do not regret it." Hearing the tremble in his voice, Genghis Khan could tell he was afraid, yet still steeled his courage to ask for this mercy. The Khan couldn't help but feel admiration for his stubbornness. He drew his saber and shouted, "Cease the slaughter!" A signal horn blared, and the blood-soaked Mongol cavalry withdrew their horses from the crowd and reformed into orderly ranks. Since assuming the mantle of Khan, no one had dared oppose Genghis Khan's will. Yet Guo Jing had stopped his command to massacre an entire city with nothing more than resolve. The Khan was furious. With a loud roar, he hurled his saber to the ground, then rode back into the city without another word. The assembled generals all glared daggers at Guo Jing. In their minds, someone was going to suffer greatly for this. After capturing Samarkand, they had expected days of pillaging and revelry. Now all of that was snatched away. Guo Jing knew full well the generals were displeased, but he ignored them. He rode his little red horse slowly toward a quiet part of the city. The battle had just ended, and thousands of homes inside and outside the walls were still burning. Corpses littered the ground, snow blanketed the open fields, now soaked red with blood. He thought, "War is truly horrific. To come to this, I led troops to slaughter all these people just to avenge my father. The Khan wages war to conquer the world, killing even more. But what crimes did these countless soldiers and civilians commit to end up like this? Guts spilled, bones abandoned in the wild." The more he thought, the more uneasy he felt. "I broke the city to avenge my father, but caused so many to die. Was I truly right to do it?" He wandered the desolate fields alone on horseback, lost in thought, until night fell. Only then did he return to his quarters in the city. As he reached the gate of the camp, two of the Khan's personal guards were waiting for him. They stepped forward and saluted. "The great Khan summons the prince consort," one of them said. "We've been waiting a long time. Please come quickly, your grace." Guo Jing thought to himself, "I defied the great Khan's orders today. He might well want to behead me, but what's done is done. I'll just have to play it by ear." He beckoned one of his personal guards and whispered a few instructions, telling him to quickly inform Elder Lu Youjiao. Then he headed into the palace alone. Though filled with unease, he was resolute. "No matter how the great Khan threatens or rages, I will not retract my plea to spare the people of the city. He is the Khan. He cannot go back on his word." He was fully prepared for a furious outburst. Yet, as he neared the palace gates, he heard peals of hearty laughter ringing from within. Startled, Guo Jing quickened his pace and entered the hall. To his surprise, seated beside Genghis Khan was a long-bearded Taoist with hair black as lacquer, none other than Changchunqi Qiuchuqi. At the Khan's feet sat a young woman resting against his knee, Princess Huazheng. Overjoyed, Guo Jing rushed forward to greet them. Genghis Khan snatched a long halberd from one of his attendants, spun it around, and swung the handle down hard at Guo Jing's head. Guo Jing flinched in alarm and dodged to the side. With a crack, the halberd shaft struck his left shoulder and snapped in two. Genghis Khan roared with laughter. "Ha ha 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 ha! Boy, I'll let you off this time. If it weren't for the great service you rendered today, the face of Taoist Qiu and my daughter, I'd have taken your head." Huazheng leapt up and cried, "Father, if I hadn't been here, you'd definitely have bullied my brother Jing." The Khan tossed the broken halberd to the ground and laughed. "Who says so?" "I saw it with my own eyes," Huazheng said. Don't you deny it. That's why I wasn't at ease. I had to come check on him with Taoist Chu. The Khan laughed, grabbed one of his daughter's hands and one of Guo Jing's, and said, No more fussing. Everyone sit and listen to Taoist Chu recite his poetry. After the duel at Mist and Rain Pavilion, Chu Chuchi had learned that Zhou Botong was safe and sound, and that the true culprit behind Tan Chu Duan's death was Ouyang Feng. He and Ma Yu had gone to Peach Blossom Island to formally apologize to Huang Yaoxi. Later, the Chenjin Six met Ku Jian'e and learned all the details from him, sighing deeply over the matter. Chu Chuchi blamed himself heavily for having failed in his guidance of Yang Kang. He had only taught the boy martial arts without taking him out of the prince's palace. Growing up in luxury, Yang Kang lacked the strength to resist temptation and had ultimately met a tragic end. Upon receiving letters from Genghis Khan and Guojing, Chu Chuchi saw clearly that the Mongols were now poised to conquer China. Since the Khan himself had extended an invitation, he saw it as a chance to advise him toward compassion. If he could spark a single thought of mercy in the Khan's mind, he might spare countless lives, an immeasurable act of virtue. And he missed Guojing dearly, so braving the bitter cold, he brought 12 disciples and came west. Seeing how Guojing had weathered snow and wind, his face tanned and his body stronger than ever, Chu Chuchi was filled with joy. Before Guojing's arrival, he had been chatting with Genghis Khan about his travels and impressions of the customs and scenery. He had even composed a few poems and was now stroking his beard, preparing to recite them aloud. "10 years of war bring woe to the people. Out of millions, scarcely a few survive. Last year we were blessed with a merciful decree. This spring I braved the cold to journey forth. Not fearing the 3,000 li beyond the northern mountains, still I remember the 200 prefectures of Shandong. The destitute barely escape unpunished ruin. May the common folk soon find peace." A civil official fluent in Chinese named Yulu Chu Cai translated the meaning of the poem into Mongolian. Genghis Khan listened and nodded silently. Chu Chuchi turned to Guojing and said, "Years ago, when I sparred with your 7 masters atop the drunken immortal tavern, your second master slipped a draft poem from my robes before it was complete. On this westward journey, thinking of my old friends, I finally finished it." He then recited, "Since ancient times, the mid-autumn moon is the clearest. Cool winds blow, and the night grows ever still. The heavens sink in silver starlight. Across the seas, dragons and fish leap through crystal waters." These 4 lines your second master had seen. The next 4 are my additions. Alas, he never lived to read them. Wu and Yue resound with song and flute atop towers. Yan and Qin revel with wine and feast in abundance. I now stand before the emperor beside the river, wishing to end the wars and bring about peace. Guojing, thinking of his 7 masters, couldn't help but have his eyes brim with tears. Genghis Khan said, "Master Taoist, now that you've come west, surely you've witnessed the might of my Mongol armies. Have you composed any verse in praise of it?" Chu Chuchi replied, "Along the way, witnessing your campaigns of conquest, I was moved and composed 2 poems. The first reads, The sky stretches vast over the land below. Why does it not save the myriad beings from suffering? All living things torment each other day and night, swallowing pain in silence, dying without a voice. I cried out to the heavens, but the sky did not answer. A tiny creature struggles in vain to survive. Oh, if only chaos would return to the cosmos, and the Creator cease to fashion living souls. Yulu Chutai hesitated, thinking, the Khan surely won't take kindly to this, and did not immediately translate it. But Chuchuchi ignored him and went on. My second poem is, Alas, heaven and earth are wide and ancient, giving rise to countless beings, yet cruelty and violence never cease, and the cycle of suffering knows no end. The gods of heaven and earth bear witness, so why do they not intervene to save lives? Though the humble grieve and ache with sorrow, they have no fortune, only endless toil and pain. These two poems, though not finely polished, overflowed with deep compassion for the suffering of the people. Having seen the horrors of the city's massacre earlier that day, Guojing was all the more moved. Genghis Khan said, The Taoist's poems must be good. Tell me what they mean, quickly. Oh no. Yulu Chutai thought, I've advised the Khan before to spare innocent civilians, but he never heeded me. Thank goodness this Taoist has a merciful heart and wrote these fine verses. I only hope his words can sway the Khan. He then translated them faithfully. Genghis Khan was visibly displeased. He turned to Chu Chu Chi and said, I've heard that China has methods for achieving immortality. I hope the Taoists can teach me. Chu Chu Chi replied, Immortality does not exist in this world, but through Taoist techniques of cultivating qi, one can indeed ward off illness and prolong life. Genghis Khan asked, What is the first principle of this cultivation of qi? Chu Chu Chi said, Heaven follows no favoritism, but always sides with the good. What is considered good? The sage has no constant mind, but takes the people's mind as his own. Genghis Khan fell silent. Chu Chu Chi continued. China has a sacred text called the Tao Te Ching, which our Taoist sect reveres as a treasure. Phrases like heaven follows no favoritism and the sage has no constant mind come from this scripture. It also says, Weapons are instruments of ill omen, not tools of the noble. Use them only out of necessity, and even then with restraint. To glorify their use is to delight in killing. One who delights in killing cannot find favor under heaven. Having witnessed the devastations of war along his westward journey, Chu Chu Chi was filled with sorrow. Now, taking advantage of Genghis Khan's interest in longevity, he spoke openly and repeatedly on the need for peace, pleading for the people's lives. Genghis Khan, being advanced in age and gradually declining in strength, was increasingly preoccupied with prolonging his life. Upon Chu Chu Chi's arrival, he was delighted, thinking that even if true immortality was unattainable, he might at least learn ways to extend his years. Yet, to his surprise, Chu Chu Chi kept urging him to wage fewer wars and kill less, and their conversation grew increasingly discordant. In the end, Genghis Khan turned to Guojing and said, Take the Taoist to rest. All right. Whew. That was a long chapter. What do you think, guys? Is Genghis Khan going to listen to this Taoist? Well, Guojing did it again. He failed to get out of the marriage. Once again, will he ever do it? Is this book going to end with him marrying the princess? Wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. Man, if Genghis Khan is mad now, he's gonna be hella mad when Go-Jing doesn't marry her. He might make the Khan so angry that he'll call off the marriage himself. Maybe. You think so? So Go-Jing gets off the hook? No. I want to see the scene where Go-Jing asks him to call off the marriage. I just want to see what the Khan will do. Should be good. Oh no, Hong Rong's gonna be mad too. Ah. This is chapter 37. Oh my god. Almost done. We're almost there. Almost there. It doesn't seem that long. Okay. Well, after this, we'll read the Return of the Condor Heroes. That's a famous one. I haven't read it yet. I haven't seen. I haven't even seen any show about it. So I think I've seen like clips and stuff, but I haven't seen the entire thing. So that should be good. All right. Okay. It's kind of late. All right, guys. Hope you guys liked that. Sorry for the stream going down. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. If you remember correctly, Ben said the third book was the worst. I heard good things about the third book. Yeah. I don't know if... I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if these books are going to beat The Smiling Proud Wanderer. That's my favorite book so far. It's so good. The third is your favorite? Cool. Okay, well, wonder how long it'll take for us to get to that one. You were misremembering Losh saying the second was the worst? Got it. All right. All right. Well, I love you. Thanks for joining. And I'll see you next time. All right. Bye.